The year is 1943. Across the globe, the fires of World War II rage on. In the vast skies over Europe and the Pacific, a revolutionary new American fighter is turning the tide of the air war. With its twin booms and a concentrated arsenal of cannons and machine guns in its nose, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning is a fearsome sight to the enemy, earning the nickname the Fork-Tailed Devil. But the story of this incredible machine doesn't begin in the cockpit. It begins here, on the factory floors of America's arsenal of democracy. It's a story of immense industrial might, of gears turning, and of metal being shaped with precision and purpose. And at the heart of this story are the unsung heroes of the war effort, the millions of American workers, the angels in overalls. They were the welders, the riveters, the electricians, and the mechanics who poured their skill, sweat, and patriotism into every single component. This film, commissioned by the War Department, was their story. It was made to show them that their hard work, their dedication, had a direct and deadly impact on the enemy. This is the story of how those angels built a devil.
In this war, your neighbor's boy does not fight alone. You are with him, part of his combat team through every weapon you make. If he cheats death in the line of duty, it is because you have paid off in the line of production. You and your machines produce the man-hours of his life. Every item on your work list helps keep his name off some casualty list. You are there in the storm and thunder of battle. You are there when the lightning strikes.
Pilot to crew, check in. Over. Place guns, okay. Tail gun check. Belly turret getting set now.
Lister gun, okay.
Pilot to navigator, what's the word? Navigator to pilot, approaching target, check. There it is, the end of the line.
Place gun to pilot. Mark at 7 o'clock. Coming in close.
Okay, Jimmy, I see it. Pilot to bombardier. Take it over for the run. Right. We're making the run. Bomb bay's open. Keep heading 340. Easy. Hold it.
Lister to pilot. Phosphorus bombs popping all over the place.
Yeah, they're getting our range. We've been hit.
There goes our left inboard.
Alpha reader calling formation leader. Rear reader calling leader. Inboard engine gone. Looks like we gotta leave you. Over. Well, there they go. Pilot to crew. We're on our own.
Ben, it's bouncing from 9 o'clock high. Ben, it's bouncing from 9 o'clock high. Finding on through. Stay with me.
Hang on.
You're connected.
Got it.
Keep pouring it in. I got him. I got him. Keep him up.
Still coming. Give them what's diving through.
Got him.
Nice going. Watch it. And it's out of the sun. 6 o'clock.
There's a dozen of them.
Don't look like we'll make it. Pilot to crew. Prepare to bail out.
Hey, look. Wait a minute. 8 o'clock high.
Hold on, big friend. Here comes lightning.
Yes, Lightning. P-38 Lightning. American workers' Lightning. Lightning from the workbenches and assembly lines. Washington lists it officially as P-38. And that's what the shipping list reads. But an aircraft spotter once reported it as two airplanes overhead with their arms wrapped around each other. The Germans cursed it as Gabelschwanzteufel, fork-tailed devil. But the Air Force men whose lives it saves nicknamed the P-38 Angel in Overalls, because it's the all-around workhorse when the going gets tough. Once the Lightning was called the most hoodooed plane in aviation history, cursed as revolutionary. First fighter to use a turbo supercharger. First fighter with a tricycle landing gear. First fighter grouping guns and cannon to fire directly ahead of the pilot. Rumored too much plane for any one man to fly and fight in. But men learned to fly and fight in the P-38s. Learned an odd way, by piggyback. Two men crowded in a cockpit built for one. And so the first German plane shot down in this war by the U.S. Air Forces was a big Focke-Wulf bagged over Iceland by a P-38. And when fighter planes were needed in Africa, the P-38s were the first to fly non-stop across the Atlantic. And they roared into action in time to knock out Rommel's tanks. When our heavy bombers started commuting to Berlin, it was the P-38s who led the way. And some arrived at the target area ahead of the bombers. So P-38s can claim to be the first American planes over Berlin. When our invasion convoy sailed for France, P-38s were the first fighters ordered to provide air support. And the Angels made good their promise to the ground troops. If you see a plane above you, it'll be one of ours. When long-range fighters were needed to patrol the skies between the South Pacific Islands, P-38s threw the assignment. Swept the heavens clear from Australia to the Philippines. It's the hoodoo plane for our enemies. Ask the man who flies one. Ask a Wisconsin boy named Major Dick Baum. You've heard of him.
I just get my P-38 on their tails and blow them out of the sky.
Ask a test pilot.
The only limit to what you can do with the Lightning is the endurance of the pilot himself.
Ask a fighter pilot.
If one of those twin motors gets hit or conks out, you've still got enough turbo supercharged power in the other to pull away from any trailing Jap and get to home base. When you look down at miles of ocean or the endless nightmare of a hot green jungle, you sure get to love the sound of those two motors. Either one can keep you among the living. And with that tricycle landing gear, you can set down in the mud of a beachhead strip like a butterfly at 80 miles an hour. There's plenty of reason to call my P-38 an angel.
That's what the fighting team thinks of assembly line Lightning. Ask Far Eastern Air Force head Lieutenant General George C. Kenney.
The morale in a P-38 outfit is so high it almost scares you.
These Lightning pilots will take on any job, because their plane will. It'll tote a bomb load of two 1,000-pounders, pack extra fuel tanks. Rate of climb, 4,000 feet a minute. Rate of speed, secret, but better than 425 miles an hour. Rate of dive, faster than the speed of sound. To the aircraft spotter, the Angel in overalls might have looked like two planes hugging each other, but it can do the work of half a dozen. Flying tow car. As a troop supporter, the P-38 is low-flying artillery. As the F-5B reconnaissance plane, the P-38 is a sky spy that slips in on the enemy for close-range aerial photos. Fighter bomber. Rocket launcher. Doing any job it's called upon to do, the P-38 earns its titles. Lightning. Fork-tailed devil. Angel in overalls.
Hold on, big friend. Here comes lightning. Lightning to Rio Rita. Get for home, big friend. We'll take care of you. Well, we're in the clear now. This lightning's a terrific, eh? Control tower from Army 127. Control tower, over.
Army 127 from Control Tower. Go ahead.
Clear the field for crash.
Army 127 from Control. Try to make it on runway 2. Land east to west. Over.
Wilco, nose wheel's gone. Start sweating, friends. We're coming in. Hang on, boys. This is it. Control tower from Lightning 67. Request emergency landing. Lead plane on fire.
You are watching an American pilot die in the line of duty. Call is passing one of the occupational hazards of a soldier. No one is to blame but the enemy. The P-38 he flew was one of the best. Each part worked perfectly. The engines, the instruments, the guns. Yes, his death was the fault of the enemy. That fault will be corrected. Corrected by you. You who make the P-38. By you who make every one of the thousands of parts that keep it flying. You will be there when the lightning strikes. You, too, are angels in overalls.
Of all the U.S. fighters during World War II, only one remained in production throughout the entire conflict: Lockheed's P-38, the Lightning. Thanks to its firepower, speed, and the reliability of its twin engines, this versatile and advanced design became one of America's most durable and valuable assets.
It was the best damn airplane ever built. As far as I am concerned, it was like flying a Cadillac automobile.
It was just an aviator's dream to fly in a P-38. It made the war in the Pacific.
We had very few planes that could keep up with the speed of the German planes or even the Japanese planes, so they needed something that would be able to be competitive.
In 1933, the newly restructured Lockheed Aircraft Company gambled its future on developing an advanced twin-engine aircraft it hoped would remain at the forefront of aviation for the next decade. To test the design, a scale model was built at the then staggering cost of $5,000 and sent to the University of Michigan for wind tunnel testing. During this process, Lockheed's executives met a young engineer named Kelly Johnson. His innovative aircraft design ideas so impressed the company that he was quickly hired. This marked the start of a brilliant partnership, helping Lockheed become one of the world's leading aviation companies. In 1933, the new project involved significant risks during uncertain times. Perhaps Lockheed's greatest advantage against failure lay in the human resource of its talented staff. Although the company was becoming increasingly automated, this was still an era when technicians saw themselves as craftsmen, and Lockheed's production teams embodied an old-school dedication with immense pride in their work. They also understood that the company's future depended on the success of the new multi-purpose twin-engine aircraft. For the model to succeed, it wasn't just a commercial airliner that was needed, but various types of military aircraft as well. From this basic model, several variants, including the well-known Hudson bomber, went into mass production. In some ways, global politics worked in Lockheed's favor. The rise of the Axis powers, especially Germany's rearmament, highlighted an emerging threat to world peace and underscored the need for expanding American air power. Soon, the U.S. Defense Department identified the need for a high-speed anti-bomber aircraft, but they set the specifications so high that few in the industry believed they could be met. Lockheed assigned the project to Kelly Johnson, who believed the required maximum speed of 360 miles per hour was attainable, but only by using an aircraft with the power of 2 engines. In fact, Johnson's design surpassed expectations, capable of reaching over 400 miles per hour. Normally, a twin-engine configuration would result in poor maneuverability, but Johnson countered this with a brilliant twin-boom design. This innovation secured a Defense Department contract in June 1937 to produce a single aircraft, the Model 22, at a fixed price of $163,000. Once again, Lockheed was taking a major risk. The prototype would end up costing 5 times that amount. However, this extra investment proved to be one of the company's best decisions. The Model 22 was officially designated as the P-38 fighter. With Europe on the brink of war, production of the aircraft remained highly secret. By January 1939, after minor modifications to the braking system, the new aircraft was ready for its first flight. On January 27, the first XP-38, precursor to nearly 10,000 fighters, took flight for the first time. Securing government funding for armaments was still politically sensitive, and the Army Air Force recognized the need for public support for the P-38. To garner this, they unveiled the project by announcing an attempt to break the Trans-America airspeed record. On February 11, 1939, the only P-38 in existence, with just 6 hours of flight time, embarked on its record-setting flight. Lieutenant Ben Kelsey was at the controls, with the American public and taxpayers watching closely. To cover the journey, Kelsey refueled at Amarillo and Brightfield before reaching Mitchell Field. These stops added about an hour to the total flight time, but the aircraft still completed the 2,490-mile trip in just 7 hours and 43 minutes, only slightly longer than Howard Hughes' previous record, which had been set in a specially designed plane carrying enough fuel for the entire trip. Unfortunately, during Kelsey's final approach to Mitchell Field, the aircraft struck a line of trees, crashed, and was destroyed. However, the plane's impressive speed convinced the Defense Department to immediately award Lockheed a contract for 13 YP-38s. The aircraft were to be equipped with a 37mm cannon and 4 machine guns, 2 30mm and 2 50mm, making it one of the most heavily armed fighters of its time. Within months, even more firepower was added, while interior design changes nearly doubled its ammunition capacity. Lockheed was now firmly in the fighter business, and the Burbank plant was restructured for mass production, resulting in approximately 30,000 minor design changes. Additional modifications were also required to reduce the buffeting and address a phenomenon known as compressibility, which caused the aircraft to vibrate during certain maneuvers, particularly when diving. The true solution to the compressibility issue wouldn't be discovered for several years, but these minor setbacks didn't slow the progress of what was considered the world's best interceptor. In September 1939, as Germany invaded Poland and plunged Europe into World War II, the Army Air Force ordered an additional 66 P-38s on the same day the first YP-38 made its maiden flight. From the outset, protecting the pilot with armor was a top priority. Throughout its service, the P-38 underwent constant testing to enhance its resilience against enemy fire, with pilot safety being paramount. The plexiglass canopy and armor plating around the pilot were rigorously tested with gunfire. In June 1940, the British ordered 600 of these impressive aircraft, naming them the Lightning. However, due to the secrecy surrounding the vital superchargers, they were only provided with a less powerful engine and aircraft equipped with propellers that rotated in the same direction. This hybrid version proved underpowered and difficult to handle, and the British accepted only 3 before dubbing them castrated Lightnings and canceling the order.
The British didn't like the airplane. And they had been in conflict for quite a while, and they knew airplanes, and they didn't want that thing. And it was a real dog. It didn't have some turbo. It didn't fly high. All the props turned in the same direction.
However, the name Lightning remained with the aircraft throughout its career. The American model retained the key features, including counter-rotating propellers that provided stability to the twin engines. Behind the engine was the critical General Electric supercharger, which transformed average engines into powerful units. By late 1940, Lightnings were rolling off the production line. These aircraft were exceptionally powerful, boasting a high rate of climb, long range, and the safety of twin engines, making them popular with pilots. Unfortunately, the compressibility issue continued to limit high-speed performance.
The P-38 was having a problem, credibility problem. Pilots are aspiring pilots and heard some things that weren't very complimentary about the P-38.
Now, as young cadets, 20, 21 years old, we really didn't know what compressibility was at the time, but that was one of the rumors that the P-38 was a dangerous airplane if it hit compressibility.
In the early 1940s, pilot training began in two-seater, single-engine biplanes, which were much lower in power. The trainee pilot always had an instructor present, but when a young pilot first sat in the cockpit of a twin-engine Lightning, he was entirely on his own. This created significant challenges given the plane's immense power. To address this, an awkward attempt was made to add a second seat in the port boom cockpit. More effective, however, was the piggyback concept. The radio was removed from behind the pilot's seat, allowing the instructor or trainee to crouch there, ensuring that the first-time pilot didn't have to manage the Lightning's intimidating power alone. The Lightning also introduced several unique features, such as a spoked steering wheel in place of the traditional joystick and dual-engine related controls for turning. The tricycle undercarriage was another innovation that pilots favored, as it made takeoffs and landings much easier than the standard tailwheel design. Landings were particularly safer, as the Lightning could land at higher speeds without risking a stall. During training, pilots were taught to always wind up the side windows, as failing to do so would disrupt the airflow during takeoff, causing severe buffeting from the resulting turbulence. New crews often worried about the dangers of bailing out of the twin-boomed P-38, fearing the rear elevator slab might act like a blade and strike them as they exited the aircraft. However, as this training film emphasizes, those concerns were unfounded.
Bailouts can be made either, 1, by turning the plane on its back and dropping out, or 2, by getting out the left window and sliding down the wing. Now, don't stand on the wing to jump.
The quality of the training was soon put to the test. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, America entered the war, and peacetime pilots transitioned into combat roles. Due to its long range, the P-38 could be flown in stages across the Atlantic to Britain. A squadron was stationed in Iceland to protect the staging airfield and patrol sea routes, attempting to intercept German long-range reconnaissance planes that were attacking ships and guiding U-boats. Without radar, these efforts were typically unsuccessful. However, on August 15, 1942, a patrolling P-38 spotted a Focke-Wulf Condor, and Lieutenant Shanahan shot down the German plane within seconds, marking the Army Air Force's first victory against the Luftwaffe. Focke-Wulf also produced the stub-nosed FW-190, which is often regarded as the best dogfighter of the entire Second World War in Europe. Alongside the Messerschmitt 109s, these aircraft had a devastating impact on early 8th Air Force daylight bombing campaigns against Germany. Without fighter protection, the early B-17s were shot down in alarming numbers, and at one point, the entire strategic bombing campaign was at risk. It became clear that to continue long-range daylight bombing, long-range escorts would be necessary. The Lightning emerged as the obvious choice, and American fighter crews were eager to showcase the P-38's potential. However, those stationed in Britain were initially sent to support the more urgent North African campaign, delaying the development of the bomber escort program. Typically flying along P-47 Thunderbolts, Lightning pilots would receive briefings on fighter protection and coordinate with the 8th Air Force heavy bombers. Finally, Lightnings were set to engage the Luftwaffe on equal terms. The results of these early encounters were mixed. While the P-38 had impressive diving capabilities at high speeds, it was not as agile as the FW-190s in high-altitude engagements. Instead, the Lightning proved more effective at lower altitudes, where it could dive on German fighters as they climbed to attack B-17 bomber formations. A high-speed dive attack was effective for only one approach, but with the Lightning's heavy firepower, an accurate pilot could make it the best way to engage German fighters. In the skies over Europe, the Lightning earned the German nickname Fork-Tailed Devil. The 8th Air Force's fighter escort operations were largely successful, resulting in significantly fewer B-17s being lost to enemy fighters. Additionally, it became standard practice for American fighters returning from escort missions to strafe enemy ground targets. In this role, the P-38 became legendary. Its long range and formidable armament made it a deadly ground attack aircraft. German airfields were prime targets, and American fighters employed the same tactics used by Germany against England during the Battle of Britain, attacking German aircraft where they were most vulnerable, on the ground. The combat experiences led to enhancements in later models of the P-38. This is a light G model, which featured an enlarged chin intake under each engine. Improvements were also made to the aircraft's armament, with the cannon and machine gun combinations often being varied to increase firepower. Additionally, the wing tank hardpoints were now being utilized to carry 500-pound bombs, proving that this aircraft, originally designed as an anti-bomber interceptor, could also effectively serve in ground attack roles. Flying low off the Californian coast, this late model P-38 tested a new weapons combination. The issue of compressibility, identified as the buildup of shock waves over the airframe at high speeds, was finally addressed. Special flaps fitted under the main spar were tested and eventually installed on all late J models and widely used L model. These flaps provided a nose-up attitude during dives, keeping the aircraft stable and manageable in various flight positions. With these improvements, Lockheed's powerful Lightning became a nearly perfect fighting plane. These L models, based in Italy, showcase the aircraft's capabilities. Like all Lightnings, their performance relied heavily on the General Electric supercharger. When an aircraft was scrapped for any reason, maintenance crews would salvage reusable parts, placing particular emphasis on the crucial supercharger. Even in a state of decay, this P-38 held value for the Allied war effort. Maintaining twin-engine aircraft was, understandably, more time-consuming than caring for their single-engine counterparts. The ground crew's dedication was as crucial to the success of operations as that of any pilot. This squadron was being prepared for a ground attack mission. The decision to carry either drop tanks or bombs depended on the specific requirements of the mission. In this case, long-range capability was necessary. For ground attack missions, 2 500-pound bombs would be more suitable. In reality, P-38s were capable of carrying much heavier bomb loads, and the F model could even deliver 2 torpedoes. However, it was the versatile 500-pound bomb that saw the most frequent use. Immediately following their briefing, crews would depart to fly their missions, embodying a mix of determination and camaraderie. Each man hoped that the mission would be no more than a routine hulling job, but they were all aware that it could be anything but that. Throughout World War II, pilots recorded their victories on the sides of their aircraft, serving as both a morale booster and an accolade. This practice, which originated during World War I, was common among the air forces of all combatant nations. Some pilots placed all their trust in their aircraft, while others relied on sentimental objects for luck. All personal effects that could fall into enemy hands had to be surrendered before takeoff, and until they returned, the mission was paramount. This remarkable footage, captured from a camera suspended beneath the wing of a P-38, provides a glimpse of what Army Air Force pilots experienced during a routine interdiction mission. Back at Burbank, the final stages of P-38 production were often carried out outdoors, taking advantage of the clear Californian weather. However, the main plant was anything but exposed. The Lockheed factory, like other production facilities on the West Coast, was considered a prime target for Japanese suicide attacks. Given the critical role of the Lightning in the war effort, the Defense Department went to extraordinary lengths to camouflage this essential facility. The main Burbank factory underwent an impressive transformation, with the entire roof designed to resemble a paddock with rolling hills and even fake farmhouses to mislead Japanese aerial attackers. The Reconnaissance version of the P-38 had no armament whatsoever, as it was equipped with large cameras mounted in the nose and relied on its speed for protection as well as on its paintwork. Early in the war, the Army was approached by Mr. Samuel Cabot, who offered a paint that would make aircraft invisible at altitude. Initially, the idea was dismissed, but later, in collaboration with the Sherwin-Williams Paint Company, a product was developed that made the P-38 almost invisible when viewed from the ground. The haze blue camouflage proved to be a remarkable success, yet its usage has seldom been highlighted. However, pilots who flew Reconnaissance Lightnings were well aware of its effectiveness. In this footage, one of the haze blue reconnaissance planes flies alongside the standard olive drab of the fighter. The P-38's role in photo reconnaissance particularly in the Pacific, was arguably its most vital function. As soon as a plane landed, the camera pack would be unloaded and the film processed immediately, allowing tacticians to assess the situation without delay. Many of the war's most crucial decisions relied entirely on these photographs. Given the value of the intelligence gathered, the Reconnaissance Lightnings likely saved more lives than any other piece of hardware in the conflict. An unusually colored P-38 named Yippee was the 5,000th aircraft off the production line. To celebrate this milestone, it was painted in a bright vermilion, with its personalized name emblazoned on the nose and across the underside of the wings. Despite the striking exterior, if you look closely, you can see that the interior still retained the conventional drab olive color. When Lockheed first submitted its proposal to the Defense Department, it never anticipated producing 5,000 Lightnings. However, by the end of the war, the total figure would nearly double that number. Another chapter in the story of this versatile aircraft was the Pathfinder program. In early tests, the armament was removed to make space for a second crew member, equipped with instruments to act as a bomb aimer, guiding other aircraft to their targets. This was only a developmental example where the concept was initially explored, using sandbags to mimic the weight of the second crew member. The program continued, and P-38s with specially enlarged forward fuselages, known as droop snoots, eventually entered production, providing excellent service as pathfinders. On the business end of the Lightning, the armament typically consisted of a combination of machine guns and cannons. The aircraft's immense firepower, combined with its ability to avoid shooting through propellers, gave it a significant hitting advantage over Axis competitors. At a Pacific base, a crashed C-46 serves as an improvised control room for the Twin Dragon Squadron. Here, a pilot inspects repairs to damage sustained from enemy gunfire before heading out once more on a ground attack mission. Not all targets in the Pacific were static. Japanese fighters could be both prey and predator. While the Zero was incredibly nimble, other Japanese aircraft were less capable. Captain H.H. Seeley, nicknamed Light Horse Harry, was a P-38 ace with 10 confirmed kills and 1 probable. However, the all-time Lightning ace with an impressive 40 kills was Richard Bong. Bong flew all of his combat missions in P-38s, and even the legendary agility of the Zero was no match for his almost uncanny ability to down enemy aircraft. Bong was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor after his 25th combat success and returned to the USA in early January 1945. He went on extended leave and married his longtime fiancée before reporting to Lockheed in early June for duty as a test pilot, where he would fly the new jet-powered P-80. Tragically, with very little experience on the aircraft, he was killed in a P-80 that flamed out on takeoff. The date was August 7, 1945, the same day the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. The last of the Lightnings, the P-38M, was in many ways the most intriguing, a jet-black, radar-equipped night fighter. 75 were produced as modifications of P-38Ls. These aircraft prowled the night skies over the Pacific theater, seeking out Japanese targets and protecting U.S. airstrips. Though they came late in the war and did not see much active service, when they did, they demonstrated the concept's viability, leading many enemy pilots to regret their effectiveness. To accommodate the radar operator, the piggyback concept was pushed to the limit, with a blister canopy added to provide a cramped space above and behind the pilot, where the operator would huddle, peering into a tiny screen. The guns featured special blast shields on the muzzles to prevent the flash from interfering with the pilot's night vision and effectively blinding him, while the radar was mounted under the nose in an external module. On the day Japan surrendered, over 2,000 more P-38s were on order, but only those that were under construction at the war's end were completed, as the remaining orders were cancelled. In total, 9,923 P-38s were produced, but as production ceased, Lockheed's Burbank plant was already churning out the P-80, America's first production jet fighter, the very plane Major Bong had been testing, but he was tragically killed. Within a few short years, the P-38 was being phased out of use. However, for those who built, serviced, and flew the Lightning, it will always remain one of history's truly great airplanes.